Welcome to I Still Call It a Lariat. This is a landmark episode. This is our first ever interview. With me, as always, Mr. Showtime Michael Wright. And joining us for the first time, he has been a friend of mine for a very long time. I consider him a brother in this business. Kekoa Mana. Kekoa, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure that you put me under. I thought I was just hopping on just another weekly episode, and then you give me this big build up, and now I'm kind of worried. I'm kind of nervous about it.
I think
There's
you'll
no,
rise to the occasion.
yeah, there's no need to be worried. But Steven, come on, you got to set him up for success here. You switched him? Is that what that was?
Maybe. I don't know. He Listen, I wanted this episode to be big. This is huge for us. This is the
Well,
first
I
time
appreciate.
21 episodes, and we're doing an interview for the first time.
Well, I appreciate you both for having me. Really do.
Of course. And you know what?
Of
We're just here to have fun, to be honest with you. So we were looking for a cool conversation. We were trying to think about who the first person we wanted to talk to. And Steve kind of brought your name up right away. He thought we could have like a really cool, just relaxing, good conversation, dig into the wrestling world, kind of your background, what you see out there. You're doing a ton of stuff. You have a great wrestling career. You have your own school. So we figured this could be something that our listeners don't really get an experience behind the curtain all that much.
Yeah, and I think something that's been happening, in the tenure that the school's been open is a lot of people have been coming through our wrestling school, which is House of Champions. For anybody that doesn't know, we're located in the Orlando area of Florida. Um, what a lot of people have been kind of learning about of House of Champions is it's a one of a kind performance center on top of it overall. Like it's a facility that nobody has ever seen. We literally have people from WWE, NXT, AEW that come to our facility specifically because they're like, man, this is kind of nicer than the performance center. Um, it's up there, and it's insane to talk about. And it sounds like for anybody that's listening to this, it might sound like we're being like I'm embellishing it, to a point, and you're like, brother, go to our website, go to our Instagram, go to our social medias, and go and check it out, because there's no other wrestling school that has a full gym, a recovery area, infrared sauna, tons of foam rollers, tens units, Normatec sleeves for your legs, a cold plunge, like a 20 by 20 real rope ring, and then on top of it we're adding a second 20 by 20 ring next month. We That's already ordered and it's getting shipped out. Like, this facility is insane, and we're almost like outgrowing it already. But just to go back to what you were saying about just having a conversation, it's been insane for the past year how many people have come through our doors and then realized that I believe, and I firmly stand on, that we are what the wrestling business needs when it comes to training the next generation, taking what worked in the old school way, transitioning with how the business has transitioned into what it is today, and having a good grasp on that, and then being able to make sure that we're setting people up for success. Because, as Steve knows, and obviously, my apologies, I'm not too familiar with your background, Mike, but I mean, a lot of schools don't set you up for any type of success. They come in, they take your money, they go, here's, do this bump, do this roll. Okay, we taught you how to wrestle. Okay, go have fun. And then they kind of ship you off, but we do something completely different, which is something that I'm really proud of.
I agree. I've been to the school. It is gorgeous, and I've been to some crap training locations. I've been to some crap shows. Me and you have been
Mhm.
on them together, man.
Yeah.
The school is gorgeous. It's literally a beautiful training facility. And like you said, you have the recovery stuff, things you don't see normally, honestly, outside of what maybe WWE's Performance Center. Truthfully,
Yeah.
that's the only other performance center I can think of that has all the things that you provide at your training facility.
Yeah, it's insane to
Which, I mean,
kind of go.
that's holding you in pretty high regard.
Yeah. It's just been insane to like have people come through our doors and we're like, this is everything that's offered within your membership benefits. And then even more. Just another something to me that's crazy to think about is, we have normal operating hours. Like, we're a normal operating business. We're not just a wrestling school that opens their doors, they turn the lights on when it's training time, and then they turn them off at the end of the night. Like, we're open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. We're open for half days on Wednesdays and Fridays. So, like, if the facility's open, like, it's yours. If the ring is not being used, if you're a member, you have unlimited ring access. Like,
That's
imagine
awesome.
how much work that you're able to do and to prepare and be the best version of yourself that you can be when you have a ring that is available to you 5 days a week at your disposal. That is absolutely insane to think about.
That is absolutely insane. That is actually really cool. I didn't even know that you guys were open like that. That's awesome though.
Yeah, Monday,
You're
Tuesday,
actually
Thursday.
you're
I'm basically there for the full 40 hours. I get 12. Well, and even like our training ends at 9 p.m. on Monday and Tuesday. Oh, and Thursday also, but like we end at 9. I don't get out of there till like 9:30, 10 o'clock because a lot of times we just, sit around and bullshit, or we go over time a little bit because we're just having fun training, like, whatever the case may be. So yeah, there's days I'm there for literally 13 hours.
but I mean, at least you're loving it, right? Like
Dude.
this is something I've watched you train. I've watched you do your head trainer job, and you clearly love what you're doing.
Oh, 100%. Um, I just love strategizing, and I love getting people to understand what we do and why we do it. I feel like too many wrestling schools on top of it just kind of go like, this is what we do. And then when kids get out of school and then they go and do matches, and then someone comes up to them and they're like, "Hey, why did you do this move, or why did you sell this way? Why did you do this, whatever?" And they just go, "I don't know, that's how I was trained." And I was like, "Well, then you weren't trained right because you don't know the why. You have to understand what we're doing." And
Yeah.
that's what I enjoy the most, is getting people to understand the why.
I feel like that's where you, me, and Mike all kind of agree on. Like, there's a lot of times I know Michael during the shows likes to talk about the rules of wrestling,
Hmm.
and you do certain things for certain reasons. Like, you can go outside of perimeters if they've never been set, but he always I know he likes to bring up like Captain America. Okay, Captain America lifting a heavy boulder isn't surprising because he's super strong. But if all of a sudden Captain America started flying, well, that's not something he does. So
Hmm.
if you live outside of your rule set, all of a sudden now everything seems weird. So kind
Yeah.
of to go along with what you said is the why of what you do things. It definitely works into that. It and again it works into, I feel like, maintaining your character and maintaining what you think your character should be.
A powerful life lesson, regardless where you are as well. It's something where, particularly when you're working with some younger talent, younger people outside the wrestling ring, while you're doing anything you're doing, like a lot of people do a lot of those things just because it felt right, or I did this because it was in front of me. But like really breaking that down on what your why is, and what, like, kind of putting that label behind what your next step is, either in the ring or in your life, or even developing your character, whoever, whatever ended up being. It's incredibly important, and it really makes everything better at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's a quote that I love telling my kids because I think that the majority of people that get trained to be wrestlers, they think that everything revolves around the moves and the action that's in the ring. And I tell them pretty much every day, that you have to think of it in another manner. We are not a, like, if so we do, we do our live student shows on YouTube. Excuse me. Um, I'm saying, like, we're not a wrestling show that does YouTube. We're a YouTube show that does wrestling. So you have to think about the moments first. You have to think about the story. You have to think about the camera angles, the shots, like why we're doing things in a certain way. Like, those are the important parts, because then that will translate to the wrestling and why you wrestle the way that you do, because you have animosity, you have, build up, storylines, whatever the case is. A prime example of that was not the student show that we actually did last night, it was last month. um, there was a great camera shot that we got when I put one of my students through a table, and the guy that he teamed with was his friend that I'm kind of like feuding with. It's one of our big babyface students. I had him handcuffed to the rope, And then all in one shot, you can see him handcuffed watching me powerbomb his friend through a table. And it was so poetic. We didn't even you couldn't write this. The table was pretty old. I bought it off like Facebook Market like 5-6 years ago, and I've been holding on to it because we were going to use it for another table spot at another show. We ended up only using one of the tables and not two. So I was like, well, I'm going to hold on to this table and I'll use it at some point. Well, we finally did. The table was so damn old. When I put him through the table, just a cloud of dust comes off the table, and everyone was like, oh my God, the dust was a paid actor. Like the dust was planned. And it was just so poetic. But the camera shot was great. And that's how the live show ended. Just Patty handcuffed on the ropes, just like basically almost in tears watching his buddy get killed. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we have to focus on, is those things, not the freaking moves, not like the 475s off the top rope and blah 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 blah, and the 20 different super kicks and the 20 different Canadian destroyers, poison ranas, all that stuff. Like, yeah, that stuff's cool too. We can have that, but it's got to be in the right spot. It's got to be in the right moment.
I love that you say that, because that's kind of what we preach on the show. Like, it's very funny when, if anytime that we talk about the show and we kind of go in and maybe critique, or in my case rant sometimes on what we think is wrong on what's going on, it's very rare that we rant about the actual wrestlers or the matches that they're in. It's usually how they're being booked or how the character is being presented. And that's always where we're at with it a lot of times, is like, well, why is this booking happening? Like, it doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense to us. Like, and I'm very big on, I know a lot of times coming through the business myself, I was on a lot of kid shows, as we called them. Like, there were a lot of little kids. Well, how do you expect a little kid to understand what you're doing if I'm a grown man of 40 years old and I don't understand what you're doing? And I was in the business and I don't understand what you're doing. So I always kind of give that, like, it has to make sense. It has to have the right moment, like you said, and it feeds a little bit more into that. Like, like, basically, we're just agreeing with everything you said. Basically, I love everything that you're saying.
Which I appreciate. Sometimes though, I feel like I'm not saying that you are specifically, because I'm not sure what examples we're using here, but what happens a lot of times is people that have been in the business for so long, or have just been around wrestling for so long, so on and so forth, our vision is clouded. And what happens is we're looking at it through the eyes of a businessman, and we're not looking at it from the eyes of a fan's perspective. And here's a great example that I always use, and this is just my opinion. If people want to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. That's their opinion. I know that people within the business would get so incredibly angry every single time that a company would put out a poster for their show, and they would put, like, for myself example, as seen on WWE Raw, as seen on Superstars, as seen on this or whatever, and they put it on the poster, and people within the business get angry as hell because they're like, why would you even put that? They think that we're trying to boast, like, oh, that Kekoa did extra work, or that this guy did extra work. Oh, he got squashed on Raw in 2 seconds against Umaga. Like, who cares? Right? From the business perspective, you're looking at it as, who freaking cares? They weren't contracted. They weren't, like, you're trying to make them bigger than what they are. Yeah, the poster's not for you, idiot. The poster's for the
Yeah.
fans. So you're looking at it through the wrong lens. If a dad who only knows that his son watches WWE walks by a grocery store and sees a poster and sees local wrestling show as seen on WWE, and they go, "Oh, cool. My son watches WWE. I'd like to take my son to this local indie show." Who freaking cares? He got in the building, you idiot. Like, that's what I mean by, like, sometimes our vision gets so clouded by, we're looking at it from the business lens. The business lens is getting the fans into the arena. That's what we need to be focusing on. So all of these other things that we look at, when someone's getting pushed more than somebody else, why is this happening? And we sit here and we get angry about it, and we're like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? There is a gazillion reasons why this is happening or that is happening, why something was changed, so on and so forth. And the only people that are ever going to know that are the ones that are behind that curtain on that television show. And I think a lot of people, not saying you guys, but I think a lot of people on the internet specifically, because you see it on Facebook all the time, and they go on and they just go, I just don't fucking understand this. Like, why are they doing this? I'm like, first off, why are you getting angry about it? It's not your job. They're not paying you, right? It's like, calm down, like, relax. It's just a TV show. And I was like, second, did you see like what their merch sales were? Did you see that maybe there was a higher rating maybe in their segment the previous week? So then they're getting more time than maybe somebody else who's been dramatically like low in the ratings during their segments. Like, who freaking knows? Who knows? Right?
I've been a marketing person for a very long time. I've been doing advertising for 20 years. So your example is a perfect one for this, where you need to draw. You need to get people in there to watch your product and get people in there to understand who you are. I don't. Your example. We've never kind of crossed that area on our show or anything like that. But it sounds ridiculous. But you made it, right? You were someone who was in the ring with Umaga. Who cares if it was a 2-minute squash match? You were on TV. All of that's true, and that makes it more enticing for other people. I'm with you on that side, 100%. Those aren't things that we ever get into on that aspect of things.
No, and I definitely don't disagree with you. We talk about a lot, kind of just getting asses in seats, which is what you were just saying. And if you get the asses in the seats, then who cares? And also, like you said, the dad who sees, oh, my son likes Raw. This guy was on Raw. Let's get him in. Maybe all of a sudden you just turn this 10-year-old kid into an indie wrestling fan. And now he's open to this whole new world. And this world of wrestling that we live in now, it's gotten very small. It's easy to find stuff now. It's not like, when me, you, and Mike were all growing up, like you had to tape trade. You had to tape trade back then because the only way you were going to get stuff was if you went to a show and you found a vendor that had the Coliseum 1985 Ricky Steamboat tape because you couldn't get it anywhere else, or an All Japan tape or a New Japan tape or something like that. Now you've got streaming app upon streaming app upon streaming app plus YouTube,
TikTok,
the
Instagram,
world
Reels,
is right in front of you.
Twitter.
You can find whatever you want if you really want to find that, unless it was not videotaped at all. But this gives you all of a sudden this whole new world of wrestling by having this little kid see Kekoa, who was on Raw, who did extra work, but now all of a sudden he sees him in a normal match. He's not getting squashed by Umaga, and oh wow, I really loved everything that he did. And now he follows. I've had people who saw me on indie matches and then ate at my restaurant a little while later, and they became my biggest fans. Like they brought signs to the shows. Like, Steve's my favorite wrestler. I was like, this is awesome. Like, and not like when Showtime brought signs to the show and said mean things to me.
Definitely.
That absolutely happened.
That's true friendship.
So one of the things that Steve gets upset about all the time in the podcast, I never do this, but he always does, is, how do you, like, particularly in your school, how do you teach your students how to kind of do lesson times? Like we see in the ring, and I know that there's a bigger picture with everything that you've been saying into it, but to lean into the moves a little bit. How do you get them to stop doing like a triple flip to like poke somebody in the eye? Or like to kind of like rein some of that stuff in where it doesn't make sense with that ring psychology, but where it keeps it more concise and keeps people in the moment rather than pull them out. Like, is there anything that you do that kind of helps people with some of those issues that he freaks out about all the time?
So the first thing
Thanks,
is
buddy.
that you got the shovel right for you.
Oh no, those were my words. I was just messing with you.
Yeah, so something that I do right away whenever we have new students, doesn't matter if they have experience or not, because we've had people. I have students for my school that have been wrestling for 10 years, 8 years, 6 years, and they come in with an open mind and go, okay, like I'm gonna trust this guy's process and just see what it does for me, right? And if they end up reverting back to however they want to do their style, like that's up to them. It's at the end of the day, I just have to give them the guidance. It's up to them. You know, lead the horse to water type thing. but I set the standard from the beginning. I said, "Hey, this is just my style." And that's another thing that I very much preach to my kids. I think a lot of schools don't acknowledge other flavors of ice cream. As we always say, for those that don't know that's listening, what the term flavors of ice cream is essentially saying that there is ice cream out there. Ice cream is wrestling, but there are many different flavors of ice cream. There's many different flavors of wrestling. There's chocolate, there's vanilla. You could say there's lucha libre, there's like British style, there's Japan strong style if you want to label it as that. There's American, like there's so many different versions of wrestling. There's so many different styles of a wrestler, stronghold, technical, high flyer, whatever the case is. So now to go to that point of how do you stop somebody from doing 3 front rolls into an eye poke, right? Like I set the standard and I say, "Hey, this is what my style is. This is my flavor of ice cream. This is the style that I'm going to teach you. But I'm not saying that these other flavors don't work. It just has to be put in the right manner, in my opinion." Um, so one, we set that standard and we let them know like, "Hey, we don't do that here. If you want to do that once you're trained and you go and do shows and stuff like that, then by all means, like go ahead and do that." Um, some of those like absolutely crazy, ridiculous things such as a triple flip into an eye poke. But also then in that regard, right? Like if you watched our live show yesterday, we had an actual human sloth, like in a person in a whole sloth outfit come out and actually have a match, and the sloth won, right? So
Yes.
like, but we had like we there is that flavor, right? There is that comic relief of wrestling, but we have to do it in the right way. So it's literally like the sloth came out, he was the surprise opponent for this guy that's we're getting his talk show segment over, right? So we get to open the show with the talk segment. He says that the general manager, Miss Renee, has picked a suitable opponent for him tonight. The sloth comes out, he gets pissed off. He starts bashing one of our other students, says he's going to beat the sloth faster than this other guy debuted last week. He keeps talking trash about that student. That student ends up coming out to defend himself, like, "Oh, you want to talk crap?" So then the heel goes to try to swing at him. The babyface ends up getting his finisher on him. The guy's laying there. All of a sudden, Sloth comes in. By that time, the Sloth has finally made it to the ring. Referee rings the bell. Sloth just covers him 1, 2, 3. Like we can have fun, and it can make sense, So we can have a little bit of both. I'm not saying that there's only one flavor of ice cream, but we just have to work with it. But we also do drills specifically, like when we say like how to make the students do less. So we actually have a drill. We call it the heat drill, where we just have somebody just cut the other person off that they're wrestling, right? So they just start beating them up. And we say, "Okay, you have to let them have 2 hope spots," right? So it makes it seem like they're coming back, and then you'll just beat them back down. But then whatever moves you do during your drill, now everybody else that goes after you, they can't do those moves, because then it
That's
also
cool.
insinuates as if you're watching a show and you saw someone do the 3 amigos. Okay, well then don't do the 3 amigos. If you saw someone do a German suplex, okay, don't do a German, or try not to. You know what I mean? Like some moves can be duplicated depending on the style and this and that, but then we really try to show like, hey, don't do a million moves, because now there's a million less moves that these other guys can do because we've already seen it. So try to just work within your parameters. So it's another way that we just try to instill less is more, work, and just try to make the most out of the little things that you do.
That drill is incredibly important because if you watch any of the major promotions right now, I feel like every single week you see a really unique spot that you really hadn't seen any before, and then 2 matches later you see it again. And like that's one of those things, being too close to the business drives me nuts. I'm sure if you're a fan, you might not notice it. I'm like, that was so unique, and I popped for it the first time,
Hmm.
but then you did it again. You completely lost me on that front.
Yep, 100%.
Kekoa, you've actually managed to, just through talking, answer most of the questions that I had for you. The only thing I was really looking at was one, do you have anything big coming up on for yourself? Any big matches, any big seminars that you're trying to to help promote. I know you guys are doing the student shows. Actually, if I had gotten out of work a hair earlier last night, I was going to try to come by the student show last night just to come see you. Unfortunately, just life didn't work out the way I wanted it to for you.
It's all good. As far as big shows coming up, so I haven't really plugged anything specifically, just because for those that do follow my career maybe more intently than others, or at least keep a hand on the pulse, we'll say, you might have noticed that I've actually dramatically wrestled less so far this year, but there's a reason for that. And again, for anybody that's been following me on social media, it's because I've been putting out these videos that are kind of like a little bit of behind the scenes of like what's coming. And overall, I don't want to give too many spoilers away, because it's going to be debuting, very, very, very soon. I'll say very, very, very soon. But without giving too many spoilers, it's essentially, like I have to evolve, and I've put that in some captions where you dissolve, or you evolve, or you dissolve type thing. So I know that I've been this version of the Hawaiian Warrior now for about 7 or 8 years at least. So again, it's time to give you something else. It's time to just, be a different version of myself. So I'm very excited about that. And to give you guys like kind of an idea of how excited I am, um, the actual plan started to go into motion May of last year. I had ordered new gear and new entrance attire over a year ago from this person. They told me it was going to be 3 months. It took 6. And to make a long story short, it was as if I gave the person like the design and saying like, here's what I want you to make. And then she closed her eyes and then just did the best that she could. It was nowhere near anything of what I ordered. Like,
Woof.
I was so incredibly mad. Like, Helen Keller could have done a better job at making this gear than this person. And I don't even, as much as it's rightfully so, like if I put the two pictures side by side and I made a social media post and been like, hey, don't use this person, like it would be very warranted. Very warranted. But I don't even want to be that person to be like, hey, this is the person. If somebody asks me directly and wants to stay away from them, I will, but I won't publicly bash them by any means. But it was terrible. And then I had to go to somebody else and then have them redo it. And then it was supposed to take 3 more months. Well, then it took 7 or 8 more months, or whatever the case was. And it's like, it's just been this long process of trying to be this new person, and it's been overdue for me. And then on top of it, every time, like, it's been messing me up like mentally, as far as like, okay, so if this is supposed to be done by this date, okay, then I'll do the photo shoot around that time. We'll do the video shoot, so I have to make sure that I'm at like my leanest at this point, so on and so forth. But then the jacket gets pushed back, and I'm like, well, now I just like super dieted for that, and I'm like, now and then I stress eat because I'm mad that it's not, and that's my vice. I stress eat. So then I'm mad that it didn't happen, and then I eat like 3 large pizzas like in a row. So whatever the case is, but I finally have my stuff. I finally did my promo shoot. I have new merch that's going to be coming out. I have new promo photos that are already printed. Like, everything is, the stars have now aligned. I'm just waiting for the date, and it'll be very, very soon. So once it hits, I'm very excited. I'm very excited for everybody to just see the video that we produced. I mean, like, just the shots that we got is just insane. I'm so excited about it. And to me, I've never put being signed by WWE or any major company on the back burner by any means, just because I'm coaching. It's always been like, hey, if something's offered to me, cool. Like, it's whatever's best for myself, my career, and my family. Because now I got the little ones. And to me, like, I don't like tooting my own horn by any means, but in my opinion, like, if I can be, I know I'm not in the better shape than, we'll say, 99% of the WWE roster by any means. Do I think that I'm in good shape? Yeah, I believe that I'm in good shape. My cardio level I think is I'm very, very, very confident in my cardio level. So between how I'm treating the business, how much I love and desire this business, how much of I want to just be all in with this, and then have this look, and then do all of these things. If this doesn't even get somebody to bat an eyelash, in my opinion, like then it's never going to be in the cards for me. Then maybe I'm just supposed to, like, maybe my destiny is to be, I just need to coach the next generation. Maybe it's going to be an age. I have no idea. But to me, if I looked at all of this stuff at anybody else, if it wasn't me, I'd be like, yo, someone's got to take a look at this guy. That's just how, you know what I mean? Like I said, I don't like tooting my own horn, but I'm not putting all my chips into this for no reason.
So
Well, you might not want to toot your own horn, but I couldn't tell you how excited I am for this. This sounds great, and I'll be paying attention to it for when you reveal it. I'm not gonna, we obviously won't push you to give us any more than you already have, but this all sounds really exciting, and good luck. I hope that people bring you up, and make sure you send us the package, everything that you kind of put together, the promo you cut, or however it comes to life, and we'll make sure we get it out to everyone we can as well.
we will absolutely reshare and retweet and repost on TikTok and everything. I'm a grown man who's learning TikTok. It's weird, but I will also toot the horn for you. So again, I've known you for a very long time, and one of the things that I've always noticed about you is you were actually the first wrestler that I'd probably seen on the indies who showed up for, if no other way I could say it, dressed as a champion. You were the one who I remember showing up to, I believe it was a New Moon show, dressed in a suit and tie, and I was like, oh man, like that, like you look great, like you cutting a promo or anything? And you were like, no, I just showing up how I think that we should be. If this is how I'm supposed to be dressing for WWE, then this is probably how I should be dressing, even showing up to this. And I remember it struck a chord in me then, and I started doing it because of you. I started showing up in at least business casual attire when I was showing up to shows, and honestly, it was because you said that to me, and I was like, and that was almost 15 years ago. You said that, and I started doing it right afterwards. I would show up in a button down. I would show up if I was wearing jeans because I was flying somewhere and I was going right from the airport to the show. It was still nicer jeans, and I had a sport coat with me. Like that was the world I lived in, because honestly, because you said something and it just struck the right way.
Well, it's insane that you remember something from that long ago, because I don't remember anything that I did last week. It's so I appreciate that. I really do. And I still, I definitely still dress as well as I can. Obviously, like with me now living in Florida and doing shows primarily up north. I definitely wrestle in Florida. Not as much as, we'll say, the Florida indie scene, because if for anybody that isn't familiar with the Florida indie scene, if you've seen one poster, you've probably seen every Florida wrestler, you know, on that show, because like they just, the talent, it's like the talent just like travels together. Like it's this weird thing, and you can, and
They
like
really do.
it's not a knock on, like Florida. It's not a knock on, maybe it's just a not more of a knock on the guys that want it. Like you keep seeing the same people on all of these different shows. It's like, well, that must be the group that's actually grinding, because I don't see any other Florida wrestlers really stepping up. You know, from Orlando to Tampa, it's only 2 hours. Like us living in the tri-state area up in Pennsylvania, like 2 hours to New York, 2 hours to New Jersey, 2 hours back to Pennsylvania, 2 hours to Delaware. Like we're all in that area. So like, of course, like you're always going to travel to all these different states, but it was easy. You know, like Florida, I get is bigger, but you know, the Panhandle's, 5-6 hours away from Central Florida. Like it's still an average drive to me. Like it's just crazy that I don't see more Florida wrestlers. But yes, I do still dress nice. It has changed a little bit, as far as like I like to do a little bit more of like a business casual, not because I don't not like I still love wearing a three-piece suit. Like when I have a three-piece suit on, I feel great. But also Florida is 110 degrees, and wearing a
So
three-piece
hot.
suit in 110 isn't always what I would like to wear. So it's now changed to maybe like very nice like dress, like jeans, like a white like a V-neck shirt and a sport coat over it. You know what I mean? Like something where like you still like, I have nice dress shoes, like something where you still look nice, but you look professional, but it's not as heavy in Florida. So
Listen, man, you wear a three-piece suit in Florida, you're blown up before you ever wrestle.
yeah, I'll sweat right through it. Like, yeah, and I used to do that when it was hot up in Pennsylvania, but hot in Pennsylvania is just a completely different hot in Florida. It's
It's
something
completely different.
you can't do it all the time, especially you don't and a lot of times you don't even know if the building's going to be air conditioned if you wrestle in Florida. So then on top of it, then like you know what I mean? Like that's another thing you got to think about. It's a little bit different. So that's why another reason that my attire has changed a little bit over the years, but um it still dress as nice as possible. I still want to look different than everybody that's coming to the show.
I mean, I've always appreciated it, and I mean, as far as your gear goes, I thought you've always had like really cool gear too. Like, again, you've always done very professional things. I always liking your style, and I know you've said it in the past that this is a compliment when I say this, but there are very few people that I think are as smooth as you in the ring, and a lot of your stuff I liken to, I guess, another Hawaiian, and that would be Ricky Steamboat. I
You
honestly,
mean my dad?
yes,
That's what I
yes, your
call him.
dad.
He doesn't know that, but
But I always say Steamboat, you and Steamboat have such similar styles, and like, but not even just the fact that you wrestle a similar way, but the smoothness in which you wrestle is on that level. And Showtime knows this. Steamboat is my all-time high. That is my guy. So me saying that about you is always a huge compliment in my mind. Is that like you're my Steamboat. You're the guy that I knew is being like that good, which is insane that I've known you this long and you've been that good for this long.
well, anytime that my name is in the same conversation with him it doesn't matter if Steamboat's your top guy or not. Like that, it's insane to think about. Which again, super appreciative of that. Um, yeah, I think it was something early in my career, like when I first started. And I don't know if it's just because I look like Steamboat, but just a lot of people would give me that comparison. And maybe they were talking about wrestling, maybe they were just talking about looks. I don't know. But then because I was getting it so often, then I started gravitating towards his style, and I started gravitating towards his just what he would do. And the more that I studied Steamboat, because I didn't grow up watching Steamboat, like he had transferred over to WCW by the time that I was like really remembering WWF at the time. And I was a hardcore WWF anti WCW. So I never really got to watch, Steamboat growing up. But then when I started studying and everything of that sort, I started realizing like this guy is like the ultimate babyface. Like you can't hate this guy. It's impossible. And I was like, okay, well now I got to figure out like why that is if I wanted to replicate that. And I feel like I've gotten a good handle on how to connect with an audience in those manners. But what's really helped is the mere fact that I've gotten to work with Steamboat so many times. My very first match on WWE, he was my agent. And at one point, he talked to me for like 45 minutes on how to be a good babyface. And to be quite honest, 100% honesty, don't remember a damn word he told me, because the entire 45 minutes, I was just like, what is my life right now?
Yeah,
Like
like you're just
I'm at
gushing.
WWE. Like it wasn't like marking out. It was just like me having like a full circle moment of like, how the fuck did I get here? Like,
Yeah.
what is life right now? Like, I know I'm just getting killed on TV and in a couple hours, but like, holy crap, I'm wrestling for WWE and Steamboat is talking to me about how to be a good babyface, which at that time when like seminars were so important because we didn't have YouTube and TikTok and people like giving away their secrets and stuff like that. I was like, I would have to pay hundreds of dollars to listen to this man right now, and I'm getting paid to listen to him. Like, this is insane to me. So much so then after that, and then me like again kind of coming full circle after, and I'm like, I don't remember a damn thing he said because I was just so in the moment. So then the next time I saw him, I was wrestling for WWE again. It just so happened he was doing a tribute to the troops. He was doing like some PR work for the company, and I saw him in catering, and the rule kind of is like, don't bother people in catering, they're eating. And me being complete opposite, because I'm like, I only get to see this man once in however many years. Like, and this is the person that I'm emulating. I have to ask him questions. Like, I have to sit down and be like, because he was also sitting by himself. It's not like he was sitting and having conversations with everyone, and I'm just like, fuck it, I'm gonna interrupt him. It was me going like, he's not on his phone. He's eating. I could be bothering him, but I also want to ask him questions. If he tells me to go F myself and go sit somewhere else, cool, but I don't think he's gonna do that. So I literally, like, I pulled up a chair and I was like, "Hello, sir. I'm not sure if you remember me, but I'm like, I just have a million questions for you. I'm like, I just want to learn as much as I can because I only get to see you so often." And I don't know if he appreciated that or what, but he talked to me. And it was just awesome to kind of go through and just ask him questions like, and this time I did remember, because now I'm like, I have to take advantage of this. I have to remember. So I remember asking him, like, what do you think that baby faces don't do anymore that was so important when you were wrestling and when you were active? And he said a lot of baby faces, when they're in submission holds, they fight to get to the ropes. He goes, it's the easy way out. Baby faces should fight out of holds, and they should never go for the rope. They should be stronger. And I went, all right, fair point. I got his viewpoint. I'm not saying that I disagreed with it, because I was like, well, also, like, if you have this hold and this hold is going to break your ankle, like if you're in an ankle lock and I'm right next to the ropes, like, why wouldn't I grab it? You know what I mean? To like try to get out of this hold. Like, you could dive into it all day, but I was like, I completely understood his point. Um, I was like, that was great advice. And something that I'll always cherish. This is one of my favorite stories. Uh, when I was asking him more about, like, okay, what are some other things that you would always do that you thought were super important that baby faces don't do anymore? He said, you know what happens? What a lot of times, he goes, when baby faces get poked in the eye, um, it's like 3 seconds later, all of a sudden their eye works. He goes, you ever get poked in the eye? He goes, your eye doesn't work for like 5-10 minutes. He's like, it's terrible. And he goes, you know what I would do if I ever get poked in the eye in the match? And I said, yeah, you would roll out of the ring to avoid getting beat up by the heel. And he just kind of stopped and he looked at me and he goes, you've been studying. and and I said, yes, it's you. Like, I'm trying to be you. Like, of course, like, I noticed that. And they would put it over on commentary. Anytime he got poked in the eye, he would roll out, he would do this, and he's trying to sell it. And they're like, oh, Steamboat's trying to buy himself some time while he can't see out of that eye. And then he would roll back into the ring. The other guy would come in, he'd throw the Steamboat arm drag. He has him in it, and then he would go back to selling the eye while he's got him in the hold. And the greatest part about this whole thing, as he's explaining it to me, and I already proved that I know what he would do, he goes, yeah, I would sell my eye. He's like, I'd roll in, and then verbatim, he goes, I'd give him a Steamboat arm drag. And I'm like, called it a Steamboat arm drag. He's fucking best day of my life. Like, it was so cool to just hear him say that. Something I'll absolutely
all of
never
a sudden,
forget.
everything that you wanted for that exact moment just happened. Like, it was,
Dude,
hearing
it was
Steamboat
so
call it the Steamboat arm drag.
dude, I still geek over it. But like, that's how much, like, I'm like, okay, like, I have to seize this moment of learning from him in this. And that's why I remember these things from that time, because I got lost in my full circle moment before. But yeah, absolutely. I love that guy so much. And I got to do another seminar with him in New York. I took, and I said, fuck it. I took the picture. There's very, very few wrestlers that I took the picture with. It's definitely one of those rules now that I've absolutely changed. I always take the picture, or at least try to remember to. But yeah, man, I can't say nothing. The highest regards of that man. I wish he was my real dad. That's what I can say.
I mean, I'm just happy we got this story out of it, because that was awesome. Like
Yeah,
you said, he calling it the Steamboat arm drag. That's
Phenomenal.
That's
Best
all
day
I
of my
need.
life.
I can't wait to see him and tell him that I was talking to his son the other day. So I'm gonna be on the lookout, see if I can find that. No, I won't throw it into the bus like that. I did have a question for you, if you don't mind. I know that you're going forward into a new kind of a new image, all that, and again, not trying to go into that aspect of things. But I was really curious about something you used to do in the past a lot, and I'm not sure if you still do. And apologies if you still do it or are going to continue. But can you tell me a little bit more about the volcanic ash? Like, I know Hawaiian culture
Mhm.
is big with everything you're doing, but you kind of did the volcanic ash on you and within like kind of like a ceremony aspect of the ritual of it. And it's something I know next to nothing about, and would love to
Mhm.
know kind of the significance, why you did it, and like what you feel like it did for you and for the story and everything.
It's definitely something for commentary. Um, so the volcanic ash is real. So it's real ashes that I actually put on my body, and it has nothing to do with like I'm trying to be more real or anything like that. Like it honestly just like it worked better. Because I don't want to use face paint because I want it to come off easy. I also don't want to stain someone else's gear. Um, and I actually tried like when I first thought of the idea, I actually got like charcoal like pens, like what artists use,
Mhm.
and I thought like that was gonna work, and it wasn't really working. So like literally one day I just like burned a bunch of wood. This was in like 2015. I burned a bunch of wood and it turned black. And I just got a couple Tupperware containers and I just put all the ashes into it. And I literally have the same ashes from 2015. I'm still using them. That's how much wood I burned. Um yeah, and honestly it works great. I just put it on my hand, I put it on and it wipes off clean. Like I just use like makeup wipes to take it off and everything like that. But the significance of where that came from was when I was studying the history of Hawaiian warriors and just different anything that I could pull into the wrestling world. They would actually use the volcanic ash, um that they would put it on their bodies right before battle to connect them to the gods, to give them the strength, endurance, quickness, everything that they need in order to win their war, to give them all of the attributes that they needed. So I was like, oh, that's easy. Like I can easily translate that to wrestling. So anytime that I knew that there were commentators on a show, I would give them that note, like, hey, if you wanted to talk about this, like here's something that you can do. And the guys at Evolve, when I wrestled for them, like super appreciated it. Like the amount of notes I gave them because it was my debut at Evolve. So then it was like, do you have anything? And I'm like, I have a ton of stuff. Here's everything about my character that you can put over. And maybe that was another reason why, like, I was going to stick around to Evolve until 2020 came around. Um, but yeah, I absolutely love doing it. The past couple months, I've actually stopped doing it on some shows just because that's another part that I'm kind of like, I'm still going to be doing the ashes, but I'm changing the look of it. So I kind of wanted to get rid of it so that when I change it again, they're like, oh yeah, he hasn't done that in a while. Oh man, that looks way more badass than what he was doing before. So it's still going to be part of who I am. It's just evolved a little bit.
Very
Very
cool.
cool.
Very
Yeah, it
cool.
was one that I just like for me personally, I really didn't have much experience with it and wanted to know more, which is awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and it was funny too. Like, um, I one of my very few interactions with QT Marshall, like I had gone to the Nightmare Factory to like go train and see if I could like get on Dark at the time. Um, we had a conversation about it because I was showing him promo pictures because he was like, yeah, like you're good in the ring. He's like, let's get you some dark matches, so on and so forth. And then I was showing him like my promo photos, and he actually told me to stop doing the ashes. And he was like, yeah, we have Darby Allin on the roster, we have Sting, like we have all these guys that like already paint their face. And I was like, well, just to give you a little bit more clarity, it's not paint, it's ashes, and like this is why I do it. And he was like, yeah, but we can't talk about that on Dark. So he's like, you should get rid of it. And I was like, okay. Like I don't, yeah, so I didn't put
I
it
was gonna
on
say
when
the only episodes of Dark that I watched were actually the ones you were on. So
I didn't do it because he told me not to. And I was like, well, if something ends up coming about, like I'll bring it back up. Like if you know what I mean? Because I think it is part of my character. It's not just, no offense to Darby Allin, but like Darby Allin paints his face because he wants to, because he thinks it looks cool. But it's not like part of his character as far as like there's no to my knowledge, again, I don't know everything about Darby Allin, but like if I look at Darby Allin and I get that he's like this punk skater, character, and then he paints his face, I'm just like, oh, okay, it's just because he's like punk demonic type of person. Like, okay, like it kind of fits, but I don't think that there's any significant story behind it. Whereas like mine actually has some type of story and significance behind it. So I'm not saying that he shouldn't and I should, but what I am saying is like, I'm not just doing it to look cool. There's meaning behind it, if that makes sense.
And it looks incredibly different. There's no confusing the look of the action and the paint. I think there is a stark contrast between the two of them. So.
Yeah, I disagreed in the moment, but I'm also, who am I supposed to, I'm not gonna verbally, say like, no, I'm gonna do it anyway. Like, well, then I'm not gonna be on dark, So
Yeah.
you do your job and you bring it back up later.
hmm One of the other questions we talk a lot about legacy on how wrestlers want to leave a legacy behind them, and I know that you're in the middle of all of it, but between being a wrestler and having your own school, like where do you see your legacy going? What do you want people to think back and remember about you when we're talking about you in 15, 20 years?
I don't know because like I do, but I don't because and the reason that I say that I do that I don't is because one, like, I'm nowhere near the end of my career.
Mhm.
Like I'm about to turn 37 years old, and I think a lot of people, and I'm sure that Steve could vouch for this also. When we were coming up and we would hear someone 37, we would go like, "Oh man, like that sounds like you're at the end of your career." But what I think is being proven right now is people are making their careers and they're at the peak of their careers at 42, 43. You know what I mean? So now think about it. If you're 42 years old, 43 years old, and you've now like made it to the main roster of WWE, and now you're building, you can get a solid 10 years out of that guy by 50, 50, 51, 52 if they stay healthy. Like getting a solid 5-year career out of that is insane to think about. Like we get lost in time of WWE and just wrestling in general and life in general of how fast time goes or how long things seem. Like I feel like everyone felt that once Roman Reigns finally lost his title, and then we kind of looked back and like, has it been 4 years? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's insane to think about. So I'm nowhere near the end of my career, so I don't know where like my legacy kind of falls under because I don't know what the future holds for me. So that's why that's the part like I don't know. Um, but I think the part that I do that I do care about as far as like my legacy, I think it kind of falls under like something that gives me so much joy and something that I'm most proud of is when guys like Steve bring up something that I said to them 15 years ago and I don't remember because I think I like being and I'm not saying I'm an inspiration for Steve by any means, but like I like being an inspiration for people and to have someone to look at and go like, I want to be like that guy or I want to do this like that guy because I really didn't have that growing up. So I like being that symbol for somebody else and holding myself to that regard. But again, I think, just the impact that I've made to people, whether small or big, I think like that's the stuff that I'm most proud of when people tell me stories that like I absolutely don't remember because I thought it was just like another day at the office for me, but it was something significant for them. Um, as long as I have that, as long as like, my girls, you know, if I were to pass suddenly or an accident were to happen, as long as my girls know, I loved them and they had a great dad and, like I was a family man because I didn't have the family man, growing up as well, like just being everything that I didn't have and being the good in the world that I wanted to be. That's all I care about.
That's awesome.
That is absolutely awesome. I mean, I mean, it's kind of the best answer we could have asked for at this point. One of the things it's funny that you brought up like something I said that you said to me like 15 years ago. Uh, I always appreciated from you. Well, me and you were kind of the younger guys out of the four of them, or the four of us, I guess it would be. So you were definitely ingrained a little bit more, but I always appreciate that you, Damian Dragon, and Matt Saigon always kind of took me in as the other little brother in the case because I always felt like me and you were like the little brothers in this case. Like Dragon had been doing this for ever. It felt like,
Yeah.
and then Saigon still felt like, even though he was probably about the same age as us, it still felt like he was the older brother in this case. So I always appreciated that, like back then, somehow I got ingratiated into the little brother syndrome in that. So again, that's one of those things. If you're ever looking about legacy, man, like I always remember how you guys treated me. Like, and as far as being a professional, I know me and Mike always talk about how different guys, when we came into the business, sometimes they didn't have to be nice to us, and they were. And I always felt like you always showed a level of respect to everyone in the business. So as far as legacy goes, I think that's one of those things where some of these younger wrestlers, when they're seeing you at a show and you just go out of your way like you do, I think that's huge on your part. Where I know it was big with us, with different guys who had, there was no reason they needed to talk to us, and they did. And it honestly, it influenced my career. It influenced how I related to other people, even outside of the wrestling world. So as far as your legacy within the wrestling world with people who know you, I think that's huge for you, man.
It's it's not overwhelming is not maybe that is the word. It's just crazy to think about. Um, it's this fall will be my 18th year in the business now. 18 active years of wrestling. And I'm kind of like looking at it as like how the heck have I been wrestling at my career as an adult now? I just don't know where time goes, and I don't know how things change and this and that. And part of that to go into like this difference and everything of that sort. I'm now getting messages from people around the Florida scene where they just randomly hit me up and they're like, this is the situation that I'm going through and I need advice. And I'm like, don't even know how I got here. Like, um, and I'll also tell a lot of people, like, I've made a gazillion mistakes over my career. And as much as you have had the like a positive side of it, and you're like, hey, he's always been nice to me. There's some people that, unfortunately, like I didn't have positive interactions with. And I've tried my best to like, right my wrongs and everything of that sort. And I've tried to have conversations with people about those things and just kind of like, clear the way and everything of that sort. But something that I'm trying to pass to my kids so much is, um, just don't make the same mistakes that I did, because that's another thing too about, how I've said, like, I want to leave that legacy behind of like just being that image for people that like I didn't have a lot of times when I was coming up in the business, like I just didn't have somebody of that we'll say veteran status take me under their wing and go like, hey, you said this, like go apologize, or hey, you did this, like you don't do that and this is why. Like I never had that guidance. And a lot of I'm not saying that it hurt my career by any means, but like I just wish I had somebody else like that can be like, just be honest with me and be brutally honest with me to the point that it would have, kicked my ass, and then, I go and do what I need to do. And so that's another reason why, like, I am fortunate that I am in the position that I am now, and that people are reaching out to me and they feel comfortable with me. Um, because again, I don't want them making the same mistakes that I did, because I don't want them, you know, I've made mistakes that almost made me like think about quitting, because I kept screwing up, and I was like, man, I just can't get this right. But then I had to figure it out on my own. Um, business is tough, man. The business is tough, but if I can be like the little bit of light for somebody, then again, that's all that matters to me.
That's amazing, man. Like I mean, like I said, that's a great legacy to have. And I know we don't want to cut you off too much. Me and Showtime were kind of sidebarring a little bit, and we were saying, just to give you a couple more minutes, just if there's anything you want to promote, or House of Champions, work rate entertainment, anything you just want to take the floor for a few minutes to end things off, man. We really appreciate everything that you've done as far as coming on the show, all the information that you've given us. I know I've been pushing it as, if you're involved in the business anyway, this is definitely one of those episodes that you should listen to or watch as far as our YouTube channel goes and things like that. I mean, you're the head trainer of what I consider a very, very reputable school here in Central Florida, which is, again, a hotbed for wrestling. So, Kekoa, the floor is yours. If there's anything you want to promote, your new, I know you didn't want to go too far into your new gimmick, but if there's a point where you think you're debuting your new gimmick or but it's coming, if you want to just push more House of Champions stuff. By the way, if anyone wants to buy House of Champions gear, it is awesome looking. I do have a hat. It's white. I wear it to work out. It's probably not the best hat to wear to work out, but I still wear it.
So I'll even do this for you.
But the floor is yours, sir.
We will build more anticipation, right? So I'm gonna send you a couple pictures of what's coming on your Facebook Messenger, and then you can forward over to Mike there. But I want you to take a look on while we're recording. Go take a look at it, and then you tell me if I've overhyped it or not.
Oh no,
this is a blind reaction. I love that.
Yeah, it's a blind reaction.
I love this. Oh, this is
don't leave
awesome.
Me hanging.
All right,
yeah, you gotta forward it over so that he can take a look at it as well. But that's what I mean by I'm like, this is just something completely different, like. But while we're waiting for Mike to get those pictures, again, as you said, the floor is mine. So, like I said, I'm very proud of House of Champions. For anybody that's thought about, chasing their dream and, being a professional wrestler, I can't recommend House of Champions enough. And yeah, I might be biased because it's my school. But as we've already talked about, like, just House of Champions is just something that no other school is offering in the entire country, in the entire world. There's a reason that we have the standard that we do and what we're doing. And the quote that I always tell everybody is that if you got that voice inside your head that's continuously telling you something, and it doesn't even have to be wrestling. If you've always thought about opening up your own restaurant or a food truck or anything of that sort, cleaning business, like whatever the case is, if you have that voice in your head that's constantly telling you you should be doing this, and you're not doing it, then you got to stop ignoring that voice in your head, because it's there for a reason. And if wrestling is that voice for you, then you got to go chase it, because the last thing that you ever want to do is leave this earth with any type of regret. If you've ever read any type of article from hospice nurses about the top 5 things that everyone always regrets, or that people would change about their life, number 1 is regret. Everyone it gets to the end of their run, and they have regret about either they worked too hard, they didn't spend enough time with their family, they didn't chase the dream that they always wanted to, and they always wish, or they wondered what would have their life looked like if they did. They took the safe job, so on and so forth. That's how I kind of live my life. I just want to make sure that whenever my final day is, I have absolutely zero regrets about anything that I've ever done, and I can say it's given me so much joy and happiness. So if that's wrestling, come check out House of Champions in Florida. As far as you mentioned, Work Rate Entertainment. So as far as for anybody that was wondering what Work Rate Entertainment is, so I did have a rental company. I would rent out rings, entranceway, PAs, systems, radios, production equipment. I had all of that. But unfortunately, I closed Work Rate Entertainment. I sold everything to the school because the school needed it more than everybody else, and I wanted to invest into the school. So I sold all of it. So Work Rate Entertainment actually is no more. I no longer do rentals. But as far as for me and upcoming shows, I do have a lot of upcoming dates. But I will be announcing the majority of them within the next, we'll say, 2-3 weeks. Once this new me kind of makes its appearance, then all of the normal graphics will come out, and all the new merchandise will come out. So just good stuff on the horizon that I'm very excited about, and just seeing where this next chapter kind of takes me. But I appreciate you both for having me on, absolutely, and appreciate just having the conversation, because I can talk wrestling all day.
This new you is awesome. These 3 pictures that I got are, I'm trying not to cut you off as I'm about to burst. These things are awesome. I'm so excited. Make sure that you let us know when you debut it, so I can make sure I watch it in real time. I don't want to go back. This debut is going to be something special.
Thank you, man. That's what I mean. Like, I don't like I don't like tooting my own horn or anything of that sort, but like I'm just super excited about this, and I'm very proud of the work that it's come to finally get to this moment. So I'm very
I mean,
excited.
you don't have to do it because we're over
This
here.
is so cool.
This is
Now,
really cool. I
the
love
worst
it.
part
This
is
is
now I
awesome.
can't tell anybody. Like I
Yeah.
can't show
Yeah.
anybody these
Yeah,
pictures.
like I have to go
promise
delete
you I
the
won't.
pictures now. Thanks, man.
You can hold on to them because at some point, you know what I mean? Like I'll debut them and then you can use them. So
Oh man, but this has been amazing. Thank you so much again
Thank
for
you.
doing this. We really appreciate it. I know we said it was a big lead in for this, but this is really important for us that we started this. This is kind of, I said it on the show that we recorded yesterday. We're going to kind of do a summer of interviews, and this is going to be kind of a new bonus show platform for us a little bit. We're going to do a little bit more interview style stuff, and you're our first, man. There can only be one first, and I wanted it to be you. Realistically, this was exactly what I wanted.
well, thank you
We
guys.
do this show just to have fun. Like we really want to have fun. We want to let more people experience wrestling world, and you absolutely killed it today for us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, guys. Can't thank you guys enough for me being the monumental first. I appreciate it.
Inaugural, right?
You've set a big precedent for people now, man. Like this is gonna be. I don't know other people
Follow
in that.
Sorry,
Yeah, exactly.
I had to pull out the Shawn Michaels there.
Yeah, you just Shawn Michaeled Undertaker the rest of the crew.
That's fine. He's a favorite of mine as well, so had to make sure.
All right. Well, Kekoa, it has been a pleasure. Fans, anyone who's listening, watching, all of that, we obviously appreciate you. If you enjoy what we're doing with this, as always, hit the follow, hit the likes. I will have just in our descriptions links for House of Champions, for Kekoa's social media stuff. Always, we always promote friends of the show, and obviously he is not just a friend; he is part of the show now. So, okay, thank you so much. Showtime, as always. I hate you, but I'm stuck with you now.
You know you love us.
Guys, have a good one. I'm gonna close this out now.
Thank you all.